Hey, this is Joe from HomeStudioCorner.com. As you can see behind me, things have changed. I've actually moved into a new house and working on setting up the new studio. So I'll do a new studio tour once it's all said and done, so don't worry about that. Today I want to talk to you about what I call the Angry Birds Guide to Mixing. My little 2-year-old Owen loves Angry Birds on the iPad, so I figured this makes sense. So there are 3 steps to the Angry Birds Guide to Mixing. Step 1, know your tools. Step 2, have a plan of attack. And step 3, know when you're finished. So first up, know your tools. If you've ever played Angry Birds, you've got these little birds that you shoot from a slingshot, and you're trying to knock down these different structures and buildings to take out the little green pigs. Saying it out loud, it really does sound kind of stupid, but it's fun. So the different birds do different things. You've got the red guy who just kind of does nothing. You've got the weird dude that acts like a boomerang. You've got the little blue one that splits into 3 birds. Anyway, you've got the yellow one. You've got the black one. There's lots of different birds, and they do very different things. So the first step to becoming good at Angry Birds is to learn what each of those birds does and how to use them effectively to take out the pigs. So when you're mixing, it's the same thing. You have to know what EQ does, what compression does, how editing can help you, things like automation, basic levels, what clipping is and why it's bad or could be a good thing depending on the mix, how to use a limiter, how to use a bus compressor. All those things come into play. So you've got each of these individual tools that you can use in a mix, but you've got to know what they do and how to use them, and especially in what context they work best. When does it make sense to have a compressor on the snare? What settings work for different types of tone on a vocal? Those are the kind of things you need to know. And really the only way to know them is by spending time using those tools in the studio and also learning from others how they were meant to be used. Okay, so first up, know your tools. Secondly, have a plan of attack. So once you know what tools to use and what those tools do, how are you going to use those in the mix? Are you going to start with your drums? Are you going to start with your bus? Are you going to start randomly selecting tracks and throwing EQ and compressors on there? I've found for me when I'm mixing, if I have a specific workflow that I do this first and this second and this third, and I know that beforehand, it helps me keep moving so I don't get as stuck on different parts of the process as I would if I was just randomly grabbing tracks. Now, what your process is could be completely different from mine, and that's great. But I found that I like to go through mixes a certain way, and it helps me progress and finish. And that leads us to our third point. The third point is know when you're finished. It's really easy to just work on a mix for days, weeks, months, years even, and never be finished. And the only way to know when you're finished is to give yourself a deadline and say, I will be finished by this point. I've heard lots of top mix engineers say, you're never going to be completely finished with a mix. You just at some point have to cut all ties and turn it in. So it's the same in a home studio. Maybe you're not submitting it to a major label. You should still give yourself a deadline. It will really help you focus and make sure that you're working on this thing with some intentionality and working towards a goal of having it finished and getting it out there and sharing it with the world. So there you go. I would recommend not going and playing Angry Birds and going and working on a mix instead. But I'm Joe from HomeStudioCorner.com. If you like recording and tips like this, head over to the website and sign up for the newsletter. I'll send you a daily tip. It's a lot of fun. I think you'll like it. Thanks again. See you soon.